On the surface, Sirens is about two estranged sisters, Simone and Devon, who are reunited upon the wake of their father's new diagnosis of dementia. But beyond the yacht clubs and the pastel sweaters and the perfectly timed dinner parties is something else looming and something much bigger. There are so many psychological themes in the show Sirens. I mean, we've got misogyny and addiction and class differences and female archetypes. I mean, I could go on, but in my research for the show, I was really curious about people's opinions about Simone and Devon, in particular the ending and why they do the things that they do. I think throughout all of it, I noticed a really common thread that I think people are missing, and it's this idea that all of Simone and Devon's actions were coming from a place of survival and trauma. People are missing this entire theme of the show, which is when all you've known is survival, that's all you can act out of. When you've been through incredible trauma and you have created a system of survival of your own design, that system does not just disappear. And by understanding this system, we get fantastic insight into why Devon and Simone do the things they do, but not only that, why they have such different reactions and responses despite having a very similar stormy past. So that's what we're talking about today, the differences between Simone and Devon based on their need to survive and the survival systems they've set up for themselves. But before we go any further, I should probably introduce myself. Hi, my name's Erin. I'm a licensed therapist and I love analyzing all things pop culture. And like I said, today we're diving deep into Sirens, so let's get after it. I almost forgot. I always introduce what I'm drinking, or at least I try to. Today I am drinking a cold brew that had chocolate cold foam on it, which was a fun surprise and I really am enjoying it. And yes, my hair is straightened today, despite it always being curly. Sometimes I like to change it up. Okay, now let's get into it. There are some things that you need to know, so I want to give some background so that we can have some context for Simone and Devon. And I do give spoilers, so if you do not want those and you want to watch the show first, go save my video, come back to it once you've finished and you see the finale. Simone and Devon grew up together with a bipolar mom and an alcoholic father, so already you have some very intensive mental health issues. And their father, Bruce, was a war veteran and has recently been diagnosed with dementia. So as the show progresses, you garner bits and pieces of the girl's story. And it becomes clear eventually how their mother passed. And sadly, she tried to unalive herself by using carbon monoxide and locking herself in her car while Simone was in the back seat. Devon found Simone in time and rushed her to the hospital and sees she survived. Their mom passed away, unfortunately. And from there, Simone was forced to live with her dad full-time while Devon was in college. The story darkens as we find out that Devon is forced to drop out of college and return home in order to support Simone, who has been severely neglected. Bruce has completely forgotten to feed her, bathe her, support her in any way that she needs, despite them both living at home together. Bruce eventually is charged criminally for this, and Devon takes care of Simone and takes over the caregiving role. Devon continues to care for Simone and actually works multiple jobs in order to support Simone and her upbringing, and eventually they get Simone into a full ride scholarship to Harvard. From there, Simone goes on to law school, where eventually we find out that she has dropped out because she actually has no interest in being a lawyer. Fast forward, and we find Devon on a mission to retrieve Simone to get her to help aid in caring for their ailing father in his recent dementia diagnosis. Simone has actually not seen her dad in over 10 years and has zero interest in helping Devon based on her experience from her dad's abuse. Simone is now working for Michaela, or Kiki, and Peter, and they are a billionaire family that owns a security tech firm. And this is where the show takes off, Devon in pursuit of Simone, trying to retrieve her from this workplace. I have 3 themes that I want to go into and talk more in depth that give us insight into their survival systems. We've got their caregiving, the maternal replacement, and their romantic lives. So let's start off with caregiving. The theme of caregiving, who's giving it, who's receiving it, who's been deprived of it, it's a really big theme throughout the entire show. Simone and Devon both have very different responses to this theme, despite coming from very similar upbringing. And as I'm talking about their trauma, I don't want to equate their trauma because they both did go through different things, but they both come from the same household and the same family, and that is going to shed some light into the context of why they do what they do. Devon was parentified from a young age. She really took on this caregiving role way too early on in life, even if it was during college. She, between her mother's mental illness and her father's alcoholism, she was really forced and had no choice but to take on the responsibilities of care and protection and stability for Simone. And in doing so, this became a part of her core identity. It really shaped her and defined her and really translated in her brain that her self-worth comes from who she's caring for and how well she's caring for them, rather than who she actually authentically is. That's why as an adult, she finds her identity in helping those around her, even if it's deeply dysfunctional or self-sacrificial. When she returns home and sees her father in the grips of dementia, Devon experiences a kind of cognitive dissonance. This man hurt her, he neglected Simone, and he caused irreparable harm. And yet, now that he's frail and confused, she can't separate the abuser from the helpless patient. Her survival instincts tell her, if somebody needs me, I stay. And when she goes to ask Simone for help, I do think she genuinely wants help with her dad. And a lot of people critiqued this in the show. A lot of people were like, how dare Devon go and ask her sister who's been abused by her father to help? And I get that. I get the disgust of that. However, I think that there is a big disconnect because Devon does not see their dad as their dad anymore. He is now this fragile, broken individual who is not himself. He can barely remember even where he is. And sometimes he even forgets and confuses Devon with Simone and vice versa. He forgets who people are. He can't remember to take his medication. He is really not, I think in her world, the same abusive dad that they grew up with. So I think that's why in Devon's mind, she finds it justified to ask for Simone for help because their dad is no longer in her mind viewed as the abuser, but he is now a victim himself. Devon's instinct to care for Simone is, yes, genuine. I believe that. However, I do think it's self-serving too. It gives her purpose in the wake of her second DUI and the unraveling of her own life. Devon is seeking stability in the only way she knows how, by being needed. She's back in survival mode, and her system of survival is rooted in self-neglect and overfunctioning. Simone, in contrast, has no interest in caregiving at all. And this makes sense. Why would she? She was left and abused as a child and left to fend on her own. And when she needed people most, in the wake of her mother's death and the abuse and neglect of her father, nobody showed up for her until very later on when Devon came back and helped her out. So yes, she has no interest in caregiving because she doesn't wrap it up with her identity like Devon does. To her, caregiving is equivalent to betrayal and vulnerability. But what Simone is doing is pouring all of her energy and effort into caring for Kiki, her glamorous, powerful boss who functions as a surrogate mother figure. Kiki represents everything Simone never had growing up: structure, affection, approval, protection. In Kiki's world, Simone gets to perform a version of herself that feels safe and admired, a far cry from the powerless girl she once was. Simone's loyalty to Kiki is not just professional, it's also psychological. Kiki really represents the life that Simone could have if Simone works hard enough, is admired enough, and fits in well enough. And that's why Devon thinks that Simone is brainwashed. It's not that she's brainwashed, it's that she's incredibly devoted to capturing the life that she wants that can help rewrite her childhood. She's really trying to hold on to this fantasy of what could be in order to redeem what has already been. And Devon sees and interprets all of this as a sign of Simone's loss of identity, that she's completely lost to her true self. But here's the truth, is that Simone really never had a solid sense of identity. And how could you when your entire life is based on survival? What looks like submission to Kiki is actually a survival mechanism and defense mechanism. Simone is grasping for power and love and stability in a world where she feels like she finally matters and is finally seen. In the end, both sisters are acting out of a place of survival. They both are responding to caregiving in different ways, in which Devon identifies with it and continues to pursue it, while Simone does not want anything to do with it and, in fact, prefers control and individuality in her life. Let's talk about romantic lives, because that is another theme in the show that is really, really big and also contributes largely to the ending. And as per usual, a lot of how they act in their romantic relationships is based out of their trauma and their survival. Devon is highly sexualized in her behavior, and it's not using that as a form of connection and intimacy. It's a means to an end. Devon has never fully learned how to ask for what she needs or advocate for what she needs. And so in doing, she has created these shortcuts to get what she needs. And those are going to be the things that are most available to her. For example, alcohol is another one that for her that is really big and really contributes to her ability to have her needs met. And for Devon, it's actually another form of regulation. Sex becomes a grounding tool for her when connection or her desire for alcohol feels too overwhelming. It's another survival technique. It really is simple as, I feel so overwhelmed, but I know this thing usually helps me to feel grounded on some level. And that is just so heartbreakingly human. Now, of course, Simone responds in a completely opposite way than Devon does. Simone is very calculated and reserved and composed, and even though on the surface she seems calm and collected, she is equally fractured underneath all of that. Simone really pushes to have romantic relationships, but when she does, she is always going to opt for control and self-preservation over vulnerability, because that vulnerability is dangerous. And she's always going to be acting out of a system of self-preservation because she has not done any of her trauma work to rewire her brain or her internal system. This is where the ending of Sirens really trips a lot of people up. Simone's sudden attraction to Peter. A lot of people felt like it was out of character or didn't make sense, but I really think in the lens of trauma, this made perfect sense. Because here's the thing. If you don't know who you are, you can't act out of character. Simone doesn't have a fully formed sense of identity. Simone's been performing her entire life, trying on roles and reshaping herself in reaction to the world around her. Law student, trophy assistant, elegant girlfriend, they're all masks. Her survival system has always depended on adapting to being what other people need her to be. And Peter? Well, Peter's kind and attentive and stable. He's powerful without being cruel. He's funny without being dismissive. And most importantly, he really sees Simone, really sees her. She is an individual who's grown up without a strong father figure and a mother who is emotionally unpredictable, unavailable, and ultimately gone. And Peter represents something safe, something stable, and something opposite of her past. So when Simone feels her world is about to implode, the one that she's built under Kiki's protection, it makes sense that she detached to Peter. Not necessarily because of true romantic love, but because he represents the next life raft, the next fantasy of safety and power. It's entirely possible that Simone convinced herself that her feelings of admiration and respect for Peter were actually romantic, because that belief gave her a way out of the pain. And that ultimately led to her ability to maintain the fantasy so that she does not have to encounter her past pain again. And maybe in betraying Kiki, the surrogate mother figure, she's actually attempting to rewrite her own past. Now she is the one that gets to walk away from the mother figure. And maybe this time she is the one that is not the powerless child in the backseat. And that leads me perfectly into my last theme, which is the mother replacement theme. This might be the strongest theme in the entire show. There's so many themes, but I think this is the biggest one. On a side note, this also represents Kiki's story too, because Kiki's mother died when she was very young as well. So there is this very weird mothering, nurturing dynamic going on throughout the entire show that I think can't be overlooked. When Kiki fires Simone because she finds out that Peter has kissed Simone, Simone isn't just losing a job, she is losing the closest thing to a mother figure that she has ever had. And this betrayal is devastating, not just professionally, but internally too, because it's mirroring this core trauma that she had, abandonment by the one person that was supposed to love and protect her. It then reactivates this emotional memory that Simone has in which she felt powerless, betrayed, and set aside. So what does Simone do? Betrayal in response. Simone betrays Kiki and aligns herself with Peter romantically and professionally, seizing control in a moment that mimics reclaiming power. But this isn't true empowerment, it's survival. What we're seeing is actually Simone's trauma response reenacting itself on a loop. She is replaying everything that has happened with her mother, but this time she has a different choice and she makes a different choice. She cuts ties first, preserving her illusion of agency. But in doing so, she is just replaying the same narrative over and over and reinstilling this idea that no mother figure is truly safe. And there's no healing there. That's just repetition. Simone's need for stability, love, and belonging gets filtered through the lens of survival. She doesn't destroy Kiki's world because she's heartless. She does it because she's terrified of returning to the powerless, invisible version of herself she worked so hard to escape. Now, Devon's relationship to the maternal is much more subtle, but it's just as revealing. Devon's survival mode is rooted in her hyper-independence. She doesn't trust anyone to care for her, so she refuses to need anyone. That's why her brief interaction with Kiki in the bathroom is so impactful. It's a rare moment when someone sees through Devon's armor. Kiki lowers her voice, softens her presence, and asks the question no one has ever asked her: who mothers Devon? Devon doesn't answer, but we know the truth. No one ever has. Kiki then says, "I see you, I see how special you are." And in that moment, Devon is temporarily disarmed, much like the sailors who are beckoned by the call of a siren. She is entranced with this idea and this belief that somebody might actually love her without condition or agenda. It's brief, but really impactful. This scene actually reveals that hidden ache behind Devon's brash and scrappy exterior. She's exhausted. She's tired of being the caregiver and the strong one, the protector. And what she wants is what Simone actually wants deep down too, a mother figure to care for them. There is one thing that I wanted to note that actually doesn't fall into any one of those three themes, but I think is definitely worth talking about. Simone struggles with panic attacks, and it sounds like she hasn't had one in a long time. And when Devon returns and tries to retrieve Simone, her panic attacks re-emerge. And that's the thing I want to point out. They're not new. They're re-emerging. I think it's an indication that Simone's trauma is still alive and well, that her body is still wired for trauma and survival, and that though she's tried to bury this trauma, it's still ingrained in there. Simone has spent her adult life chasing structure, running around with this belief that if she can build something functional and beautiful, it will quiet the storm inside of her. But trauma doesn't just disappear, it waits. And when that structure starts to crack, that trauma is going to come roaring back. Simone's panic attacks are a signal that she has just masked and curated and been running for so long. It is a signal that the life that she has built, while she's trying to build one that is different from her past, it's not one that is rooted in healing. It's one that's rooted in survival. Until both women decide to face their trauma directly and head on, they're gonna keep recycling the same trauma and survival strategies. Devon is going to continue to numb, and Simone is going to continue to try to control and run. And there's a lot of empathy in that. Both of those are completely human and understandable things. But at the core of that, surviving is not living. Those are two different things. What makes Sirens so captivating is not the drama or the aesthetics or the wild plot twists that exist, which you should definitely watch it for those. But what makes it so captivating is it's a story about two different sisters from similar chaos, growing up and responding in very opposite ways. And I think that's so intriguing and so fascinating. Devon's drinking, Simone's panic attacks, their mistrust of the people and each other around them. It's all rooted in how trauma makes us respond to things like power and love and identity. And those things are responded to out of their survival systems, the survival systems that they had to endure and pick up as kids. It's sad and it's hard, but the hope in it is that there is always room for healing, that they can unlearn these systems of survival, that they can move into healthy ways of interacting and moving through the world. So maybe it's less about trauma and drama and sisterhood and more about one's ability to recognize the things that they've gone through and make movement towards healing those things. If you liked this video, then you would probably love my channel where I analyze a lot of different things in pop culture. I would love and appreciate any support, whether it's a like, a comment, or subscribe. I'd love to hear what you think about the ending with Simone turning to Peter and betraying Kiki. I know it was a pretty contentious ending, so leave a comment. Let me hear what you think about it. I can't wait to keep growing my channel, and I would love, again, any support. It's super appreciated. So please keep tagging along, subscribe if you find this interesting, and I will see you all soon.